Hello and welcome to the Vir Vulnerabilis Vir podcast. I'm Adam Glinsky,
And I'm Albert Imperato.
where we help men connect and build empathy. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Mike Lauria, and he's a really cool guy. He's up on Instagram, and Albert actually introduced me to him. So Albert, you want to tell me a little bit about him, and then I'll give everyone the bio.
Yeah, I mean, Mike came to a couple of the denim hangs that we did and instantly became like the heart and soul of the group. He's a very, very joyous, very generous soul, very personable, funny as hell, just a really, really solid guy that everybody loves. And I didn't actually know the full details about what he did until a couple of times in his work as an educator and as a language specialist, which I think is always fascinating when people can speak other languages. It's such a great power. So, maybe you can give the little bit of the bio info that he sent us. But that's how I met Mike, and I would count him amongst my special Instagram friends, one of the really nice guys I know.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really cool. I'm very excited to meet him. So Mike is 33 years old. He lives in Westchester, New York. It's about 40 minutes north of New York City. He lives with his wife, Liz, and his dog, Bruno. He was born in the Bronx, where he grew up, not far from where he lives now. He came from a typical Italian family where he loves to chat. In high school, he is a world language teacher. He speaks Spanish, Italian, and a couple other languages like ASL and Portuguese. He sometimes is an interpreter and translates, but right now he primarily teaches. His wife and him got married a couple weeks ago, and they've been together for over 10 years. In his spare time, he likes to enjoy denim, boots, various leather goods, fountain pens, and smoking pipe tobacco.
That's our man, Mike.
Yeah, so we're going to get him on here in just a second. We'll be right back. We got Mike here, so we're really excited to have you on. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah, so Adam asked me how we met, and I told him that we met at a denim hang.
That's right.
And I told him not to make you blush, but I told him that you became everybody's favorite.
Well,
immediately.
It's a good thing they can't see me on this podcast because I'm already blushing.
Oh. They actually can see you. Not immediately, but yeah, they might be able to see you later.
Oh, okay. So I gotta make sure I don't get too red in the face.
Yeah, well, we haven't sent you the consent forms. We're allowed to make beach blankets, t-shirts, everything out of your likeness.
Gotcha.
Yeah, basically.
I'm really pushing for coffee mugs.
I love coffee. I love coffee. So, and the more merch, the better. That's fine by me.
So, basically, you've had a little bit of an intro into what we've been doing, and it was really very kind and wonderful of you to say, "Hey, I might want to come on and talk with you guys." And the specific thing that we had just gotten to, I remember what started this conversation was that I liked a beautiful photo of you and your wife. It was a wedding photo, actually, from
about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's still weird to say. Video of a picture of me and my wife. I'm still getting used to that. Yeah, just 2 weeks ago.
And what was interesting, a little bit interesting, I suppose, that you said something to the effect of, "Wow, pictures only give you like sort of that snapshot moment, but don't really convey so much of what we've been through together." And, of course, we don't want to pry, but we want you to tell us every juicy detail about how you went from being just with the gal you love to that point of being married. And obviously the reason why you want to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, Albert, you and I are old paisans. So, we come from Italian families and we're basically washwomen. So you don't have to pry. It takes very little prying for me to spill my life story. I'll edit it a little bit, for Liz's sake. But
although you have a private Instagram account, so there's a little bit. Is that the privacy thing?
The privacy, it's because I'm a school teacher. So my private account is, and Lord, if my students find this podcast, they're just going to rip me apart. But, my private account is basically so they don't follow me. It's just one of the barriers that I can control and keep. between
Got it.
me and
Okay,
my
totally.
students. And, Albert, you've seen my Instagram. There's nothing racy about it, and my students, I tell them that all the time, guys, I don't post these really inappropriate things. It's just that, that's one piece of privacy. Like, I tell them so much stuff. That's just one area I get to keep to myself. And when they graduate, I usually let them follow me. But, yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind telling you every juicy detail that I can. What I don't know. I guess we'll kind of throw the line out there and then kind of reel it back in if we want. But that picture was interesting because it was this 10-year challenge that I've been seeing, and Liz and I have been together for 11 years with a slight break. So the funny thing about pictures say 1,000 words, but behind the picture, there's millions and millions of more words, I think. And the story of who we were then and who we are now is just, I think it's just so incredible. And the journey in between, because it was one of those, if you love something, let it go. And then we found our way back to each other. So, I don't know if you want to organize this, because if I start rambling, it'll go in a million different ways. And so if there's something
having rambled through my life story when Adam did a deep dive with me.
Yeah.
I listened to. Is that your doggy making noise?
That is. He's ticking on the floor. He won't just lay down. Okay. He just looked at me. Can you pick up? Are you picking up every sound from that?
A little bit.
Okay.
It's really not distracting.
Okay.
It just sounds like a cactus being run through a set of blinds, but otherwise it's not remotely distracting.
He's just making a little appearance.
I don't know. Would you make the comparison? I'm just totally kidding. It's not so terrible.
Okay.
So I felt a little bit since Adam and I were starting the podcast that I just sort of had to tell my story, so to speak. And I told all of it. It's way too much. But anyway, wow, the dog really is a little loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so you don't have to go deep, tell us, every single bit of the backstory, but bring us a little up to date. You were together
in college.
You met in college.
We met in college. We dated for the last 2 years of college, and we thought we knew everything about life, right? Doesn't every college student? I got this. So we thought we knew everything about relationships. I have a sister. She has 2 sisters. So we saw them in relationships, and we were like, we're not like that. We're like that. We're not like that. We got it. And then, we graduated and we went back to what was real life. And we found out how hard life was and all the adult things, distance and jobs and finding jobs and starting careers. And, everything just became 100 times more difficult. And I think we realized that, we didn't really know how to be with one another, and through reasons, her family was going through stuff, my family was going through stuff, and we just didn't know how to be an adult couple. We split up for a couple of years, kind of kept in touch but kind of didn't, and then through dating other people, realized we didn't realize what we had. We weren't using our time and our energy the right way together. And we grew and we learned and we learned and we learned and we got back together, and now we are where we are. And just that story of growth and learning how to communicate and learning how to share a life. We thought we knew it in college, and the truth of the matter was we had no clue what we were doing. And then real life kind of smacked us in the face. Yeah.
So, wow. Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really inspiring. So my wife and I, we've been married for over a year, but together wise, we've only, been together for 4 years. And for a good year and change, we weren't in the same state. So we were FaceTiming and texting and talking. So, and that was a very short time after we got together. So we kind of did the really hard part of staying together and learning to be without, but still being connected. So we had a really hard time keeping it alive and trying to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Right when we first went off, and it's really inspiring to see that you kept it alive, and then there was a pause and kind of like a changing point, and then you went back to it. So
Yeah.
like it basically, love can really survive a lot of hardship. So it's very
Yeah.
inspiring to hear that from you.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head there. And that's how we knew it was something real. It was that love kept, though we weren't officially together, there was never silence between us. Even though we weren't dating, we still kind of kept in touch a little bit here and there. And I think that was on purpose. We just needed to figure ourselves out before we could figure out life together. So we had to kind of do the separate thing, the individual thing first. Yeah. And when we were doing the long distance thing, again, I guess we really had no idea who we were. We were doing the things and kind of, I was chatting about this with I think Albert first. We were doing the things that we saw in our family. We were trying to maybe mimic that or not do those negative things. And we just completely lost sight of who we were together just as a pair. And then like I said, we had to separate to figure it out. And then, like you said, the true love thing just kind of brought us back together, right, to the same place. But it was interesting because there was a lot of learning. I had to figure out who I was, and then, oh my goodness, looking back at our relationship before we broke up, to say, kind of, I really wasn't the best person for her, and she looked back and said, "Wow, I really didn't treat him the way I should have," and we kind of did that back and forth, and that was part of that growth, and I had to really learn too. And that's why I wanted to tell this story here, because I am as stubborn comes. I am a stubborn mule, and I had to learn how to be with someone, in a real deep relationship, and I didn't know how to do that.
What specific things, though? In what ways were you early on, the first time through the?
Yeah.
What were the types of things that you were sort of digging in your heels,
Oof.
not being flexible,
Yeah.
being whatever it might be that
Yeah.
would be not conducive to a relationship?
I mean, it's almost like you name it. I grew up learning things in school, and that was what I knew. And if somebody came with a different way of doing it, a different point of view, I was just so not open. I was so closed to all of that. And it was like, no, and the way my brain worked was like, no, that's how I learned it. Your way doesn't make sense to me, which means that your way isn't right. Almost, it's not right. And I would fight tooth and nail, about that. And like, no, I don't understand what you're bringing to this. It doesn't make sense to me, or I just don't believe it's right. Everything. It could have been, I mean, we love to cook, so it could have been a recipe. Oh, you make it this way? No, I learned it this way. I don't know what you're bringing to this. What do you mean to, how to organize something? I organize something this way. You organize it this way. What do you mean? And I was just so closed to that. I like letting someone else's stuff in. I just couldn't do it back then. And maybe it's part of the growing process, but I don't know. Maybe it's part of my upbringing. I don't know.
Well, it sounds to me like you kind of had a mental mindset shift where you went from a very fixed mindset of
To
this is who I
growth.
am, and this is exactly,
Yeah.
to a growth mindset, to where you said, I can accept some new things,
Yeah.
I can process them
Yeah.
and see if they're very valid.
Yeah.
So
And I won't
kudos to
lie.
you, man.
Thanks. And I won't lie. I was schooled. I didn't, I guess, discover this all on my own. Like, I didn't always read it in a book and go, this is something I should be doing. When we were apart during what I call the learning process, I dated other women and they schooled me. Like, what do you mean that's wrong? You're out of your mind, if you will. Like, you're out of your mind that I'm wrong or this is wrong. This is the way it's done, blah, blah, blah. And I was schooled, and it was sort of embarrassing. I had to swallow my pride. I had to open up. It was almost forced, but then I had to learn to accept it and go, huh. And then the light bulb moments, like, wow. And then, like I said, hindsight, I would look back and go, oh, I really didn't treat Liz very well when it came to this same thing like 5 years ago when it happened. So that was, and the funny part, I go to this 10-year challenge, those pictures. When I look at that first picture, I remember that night so clearly. We probably had fought about something. We looked so loving in the picture, but there was so much behind it. There was so much story. She was mad at me. I was mad at her. We had fought probably the whole week in college. And that picture was, I'm hugging her and we look like we're so happy and smiling. And there was just so much, I don't want to say wrong because wrong is wrong, but there was so much not quite right in it, but it looks like perfect world. And I just remember that mindset. Now that you say it, the fixed mindset, I remember looking back on, oh man, there was so much we were going through at that time. And then I flipped to the wedding picture and I'm like, wow, we are actually happy in this picture. We've learned so much. Like this is the positive. So much has changed.
Yeah, definitely. When do you think like you kind of had your aha moment where you kind of let love in and you were just like, you know what, like let my heart speak more than my head?
Actually, so like I said, we never kind of went silent. We had always exchanged maybe an email here and there, but I think it was early 2015 when we started to amp up back the emails again, when we started really kind of connecting again. And a lot of the same conversations started happening from our previous relationship, but I felt so differently about them. So like we're talking about me being stubborn, a lot of the same things were happening, but instead of me getting hot in my head, I was just totally calm, and it literally, things brushed off my shoulder and I was like, huh. And then she said to me something like, wow, 4 years ago that you would have like blown up at that. And I was like, you're right, I would have blown up about that. Why didn't I blow up about that now? It's the same exact thing. And we kind of went through this process, this back and forth. And then and then I guess that was for me like okay, maybe my mindset is different. Maybe I've shifted a little bit. I think that was it.
How long were you apart?
We were apart for about 2 years. About 2 years.
So basically you took
a little break.
You took it seriously, the lessons that you learned from the various people that you saw after you had broken up.
Yeah.
And you made good of them.
Yeah.
You actually put them to good use.
And it was funny because we joke about it now. We were like, wow, we learned so much stuff when we dated other people, but like inside, were we trying to apply those things to our relationship because we knew we would get back together, or like subconsciously? I don't know. It's kind of this weird energy thing. Like I subconsciously maybe thought we would always end up together. I was learning these things and applying them to our former relationship. I mean, because at that point, that was the most serious relationship I had. And when we got back together, we were able to really apply them to our relationship. And I was like, huh. So we did learn. We learned from other people, like, right? We got embarrassed. We got schooled by other people. And now we're using that stuff in our relationship. And by some cosmic thing, like it worked. It really worked. We I don't want to say morphed. We changed into different, better, wiser people. That worked.
Well, just tell us a little bit about when you went from being apart to being back together again. What triggered that? What was the that
so
night kind of thing?
What's that?
Was it a very special night kind of thing? A coincidence?
No. Like I said, we were emailing back and forth, and then we were both starting to not unravel, but I guess spill that we were both really unhappy in whatever fling we were having at the time, whatever not really so serious, but significant other person we were dating. We were both starting to confess to each other, like, yeah, we weren't really happy. And that kind of translated into, hey, let's meet up again. And then we met in the city, and then we went to a restaurant in the city and we stayed there until basically they closed. And then we went to Starbucks afterwards, and it was like 6 or 7 hours where I mean, we rehashed everything. And then we were like, it was almost like we're stupid if we don't get back together. This is just, I guess, fate, or you make your own fate, or whatever someone wants to believe. But it was like, this is way too obvious. Is this too good to be true? And I remember we texted on the train ride home going, we're not going to rush into this. We'll take this slow. If we're going to do this again, we'll do it the right way. And then by like a week later, we were like, okay, well, we're back together. And then 6 months later, we were looking for an apartment. So
what is obviously you love Liz and wanted to just be basically, I think, to a certain degree, talk to us about it, like to just almost let her know in another form that how much you appreciate what you guys have. I'm wondering, what are some of the takeaways that you'd like to suggest to people in their relationships? I mean, we kind of think, we always hear that change scares people.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the feeling a little bit that people forget that change can really be good.
Yeah.
And not being afraid of change sometimes means something great will happen.
Yeah. I think one thing I would say is try your hardest not to be afraid to be outside of your comfort zone, and especially, so like in physical situations, someone's afraid of heights, they say, try, work up to it, do something. But this, like, that's a physical, mental thing. Like, this was all inside of my head. This was all a mental thing. And so I would say for somebody, just be observant and as hard as it is, open your mind, if you will. Allow others in. We're guarded a lot. I was afraid of letting people, after what happened with Liz, I was so afraid to let someone into my brain because, I'm so stubborn. The stubbornness was part of what caused us to break up. I didn't want to let someone see that, but it took, and someone like just whacking down the wall to get into my brain. And once they were there, I was able to, kind of rely on someone to, I guess, talk through things and just allow them to see what was going on. And I guess that helped me shift my mindset, if you will. And I forgot the question you actually asked me.
It was about the takeaways about, what you're, communicating to other people is the idea of being open.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
Now, I'll never forget, I was, when I was a kid, I was watching some PBS thing and there was one line from this show that I completely don't remember the rest of the show, but the one line was, I was so obsessed with changing the world that I didn't really understand how I was going to let the world change me.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's something that I think is very, very powerful to just realize the benefit of being changed.
Yeah.
We don't want to go insecure and so unanchored that we're changing.
I think you're right.
Token to be inflexible and not change is kind of a real high risk approach to life.
And that was something we call it our first act, our act one, when we were together the first time. I was so stubborn and I was so set in my ways for a 20-year-old. You usually hear that about your grandparents. They're set in their ways. I was so set in my ways that I was so afraid to let anything change me. I was so afraid of being outside my comfort zone, of doing anything differently than I knew. And I think the other thing is really important is to, one thing I had to realize was that when you're in a relationship, your partner, usually you have to keep in mind that your partner has good intentions, usually. And that was something I was so afraid to let happen. I was so afraid to let her in because I thought the intentions were negative. They were bad. They were changed. They were for the worst. And then I realized that it's not for the worst. You're going through this thing together. You have to remember that someone comes from a good place. I say this to my colleagues. We say this all the time to each other. If we suggest something that's opposite or not what you think, always remember I'm coming, from a place of love. We're not saying it to be attacking. We're not, even if it's different than what you believe or what you think, I'm not attacking you. I'm providing another point of view or another way of looking at something, right? Or another opinion. And it's coming from a good place. And that's a partnership. That's something that I had to realize. So it's a partnership. It's not me versus you. It's us together, you know.
Well, on a grand scale, Lord knows our country can use a little of that spirit. So hopefully you'll be spreading and fertilizing that to your young students who will then change the world.
I try.
Yeah, I got one question for you here.
Sure.
So you said Act One was kind of the misfit era, you know, and then Act Two right now is like your bond and your start to the growth. What does Act Three have in store? You know, there's always three acts of the story. So
I don't.
You know, yeah, I mean, for me, like marriage is like, it's such a big commitment. And my wife and I actually talk a lot about the future. We talk about what we want to do, like how we want to raise our kid, like what schools eventually do we want him to go to. So I'm just curious, like, you know, what's your Act Three looking like?
I don't know. Oh, I don't even know. You know, we just said to each other last night, like, the wedding's over. We can breathe. But like, now your question's got me thinking, oh shit, hopefully I can say that. I don't know. You know, we've got some, I guess, general plans of, you know, kids, no kids. You know, right now, unpopular opinion, we're going to say right now, we're not looking to have children. I guess maybe that could be Act Three. If she listens to this, she might smack me through the phone for saying that, because who knows? I don't know. That's a tough question right now. I don't know. I guess there will have to be one. Maybe Act Three is, you know, our life as a married couple. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for that.
It could be as simple as, and they lived happily ever after.
Maybe, I don't know. Is life that good to us, right? I'm a little bit of a realist, cynist sometimes. I'm very cynical at times. So when I'm in my own head, so I don't know. Can life be that great? I hope so. I hope so. I don't know.
Well, yeah, the big reason why I asked that is because communication is so important with our marriage, and I think it's just so important. Period. So you know, just talking about it in smaller increments rather than, hey, babe, let's plan out entire life together,
right?
Or you know, hey, let's plan out the next week, or what are we doing this weekend, or hey, what are we planning to do, like with so and so's relationship? That might be a good place to start. You know, real small, and then work your way up to like the house, the kids, you know, the everything else.
That's so true. And we notice when we don't do that, when we do get too big, that's when our relationship starts to feel a little tense or rocky. You know, we're both, you know, I would say we both have a little temper. We're both Italian, so we talk, not to offend every Italian out there, but I think they'll know what I'm saying when I say this. You know, we get very emotional when we talk. So when we don't break it down, we get very big and animated, and that's when we don't communicate clearly. And when we don't communicate clearly, that's when everything starts to boil over, if you will. So yeah, you make a great point. You know, Act Three might have to be broken down a little bit. I feel.
Yeah, I'll leave you with a little tidbit that I've heard from this guy, Chris Graham. He does a podcast with Brian Hood called The Six Figure Home Studio. Definitely recommend that, even if you're not an audio guy. But he told you know, his audience about EIA, expectations in advance. Oof. And yeah, it's like, before I was on this, like we had a little pause and my wife went to the grocery store. It's like, hey, whenever you come in, I'll be recording a podcast. I need you to not make any noise. So, you know, and as much as possible, you know, there's still probably some grocery bags and a kid yelling in the background.
Instead of like, you come in, make a little noise after you're done. It's like, hey, I was recording a podcast, you know, or hypothetically, I expected a little silence, you know, beforehand. And I noticed we do that too. I just thought of this. One of my biggest things in, like say, Act One was when I first started my career, I couldn't leave my job at the door. I would always walk in and I'd be in a bad mood. And she would always say, like, I never knew. You were texting me and then you walked in. I didn't even know you were in a bad mood. And then when I had the light bulb moment for that, it was, you know, maybe if I texted her and I said, hey, babe, I'm in a bad mood, I'm trying to leave it at the door. I just can't do it. It was just a horrible day. I'm just letting you know in advance. This way, when I walk through the door, right, and I'm not in a great mood, she knows it. And she can brace for it, right? Maybe she'll give me a little space to, get changed or take the dog out or something like that. That was a huge, huge thing between acts that you made me think of. And now we've practiced it so much, it's now one of those things that's ingrained, it's routine in our relationship. It's always whoever walks through the door last. It's always like, whoever's coming home, just let us know how you're doing that day or whatever. And I'll stay out of your hair or whatever, I'll plan accordingly, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Yeah.
For me, it's drawing the bath or giving a hug,
Gotcha.
One of those.
Right. What Liz will do is like, she'll either be cooking and she'll keep cooking, and she'll keep the dog like at her side, or she'll let the dog run to me at the door. Hey, how are you? Chat it up, depending on whatever the text message is. Yeah, no, it's huge. And it took a lot. It took a long time to, I guess, be able to do that. That did not happen overnight. That took a lot of
that's a tough one.
Yeah, because it took a lot of, mostly me, I'll say. It took a lot of me forgetting, because I seem to be the one to struggle with that more. She's able to kind of compartmentalize better, and I struggle. So I definitely forget often. So I'll come in and then I'll be like, oh, damn it, forgot to tell you. Sorry, little pissy today, and or she'll be like a little hesitant, and I'll be like, "What's the matter?" No, I'm fine. Like, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I totally forgot. Sorry. That's tough.
So
that's a good one.
Anything else, Mike? We know you're a teacher, which good for you for doing the good work.
Thank you.
I know you teach languages, which I'm fascinated by, because I think you can extend your humanity so much further when you can make that attempt to connect in other people's language. Always something I have like really profound. I mean, to have a last name like Imperato, like not speak Italian is not good.
Listen, put it on the denim. Put it on the denim hang agendas. I will bring some lessons if you need me to.
I have worked with a lot of famous Italian musicians, and they hear my last name and they start talking Italian, and I feel about this big. But we'll have to compare pasta fagioli piece at some point. I want to know how you make your pasta fagioli, and maybe we won't fight over them.
No,
you're very stubborn. If I tell you to add a can of peas, you'll be like, "Fuck."
Growth mindset. Growth mindset.
Adam is great for the mindset stuff. I highly recommend him for mindset coaching. He's helped me with a couple of things. But yeah, anything else, Mike? I mean, I think it's been a great conversation about relationships. I don't know what your song is. Do you and your wife have a song?
I can't believe you just asked for that, because the other day we were just in the apartment, because we had a certain type of little short brunch wedding. We didn't have a big DJ or anything like that. She was in the other room. She goes, "We don't have a song because we didn't have a dance." And I said, When we first got back together, we do have a song, actually. Because when we first got back together, one of the things we said to each other was that the relationship felt like home. It felt like home. So it's not a very famous song, but there's a song, and I'm going to forget this woman's name. It was in a movie, one of our favorite movies. And the song was called Feels Like Home. And I'm going to forget it, so I'm going to try and look it up on my phone real quick, pretending that I'm not. I think her name is Chantal.
I kind of came up with one for you guys.
Ooh, you got one?
I do.
What's your song for us?
Well, it's an old Frank Sinatra song.
Yes.
Love is lovelier the second time around.
Yeah.
So much more wonderful with both feet on the ground. Ooh. That was my song too, because I had a little bit of the relationship that went away and then came back.
Okay.
But anyway,
I like that. I'm gonna maybe when she comes home, I'll have that playing.
I love it.
That's good.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
So the song is Home.
Yeah, it's called Feels Like Home. Not to infringe.
Chantal Krasviziak?
Yes, I
have no
don't
idea
know
how to say that last name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was in. I'm a huge rom-com guy. I love romantic comedies. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, and it was in one of our favorite movies to watch is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and
Okay.
it's in
That's a
that
classic
movie.
one.
It's in that movie when the two of them, like, they're playing each other, and then when they have this nice sincere moment together, that was the song. So it's so funny because we came back together and everything felt just like going back home, and in a good way now because we were better people. So that's our song, though we haven't gotten to dance to it because we didn't have a huge ceremony and reception at our wedding. Maybe one day. Maybe that's Act 3.
We're taping this a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so it seems so appropriate to talk to you right before Thanksgiving because you've given so much thanks for love in your life and finding the special person twice, and that's a beautiful thing. Anything you want to end up here with, Adam?
Speaking of Thanksgiving, I'm thankful. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's been great. So I'm really happy to have you on here. I think you gave some great insight to love, relationships, and growing yourself as a person, and kind of, being that vulnerable person to lose a little bit to gain ultimately, the love of your life. So congratulations on your marriage. It's a wild ride. And welcome to the club, man.
Thank you.
And we're thankful to you, Mike, also just because you've been so positive about the podcast and encouraging.
Love it.
I mean, I just love, there's nothing more gratifying and you want to be grateful for support when you're doing something that you're still wrestling.
Thank you.
Trying to figure out. Thank you for that.
I love it. And I hope that even one listener can take a few words that I say and, it helps them, even if, that's why I'm a teacher. Come on. Even if one person gets something out of this, I feel like I've done something good, and I appreciate you guys inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
See you soon, buddy.
Absolutely. See you guys.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again, Mike. This has been the Vir Vulnerabilis Vir podcast. I'm Adam Glinsky.
And I'm Albert Imperato.
Thank you for listening.